and welcome to this tutorial by Films by Chris. I'm Chris with a K, filmsbychris.com, link in the description. And today we're going to be playing around with SQLite3. So I don't claim to be a database expert, but I do use them to store data, and I thought I'd show you a little bit of SQLite3, specifically version 3. For most of my web stuff, I use MySQL. But SQLite is great for applications you might have. It's very commonly used, if you have a smartphone and you have your, depending on what application you use, but a lot of applications will use this type of database. They'll, for your contacts possibly, or your text messages. So it's really neat to just be able to understand it. And for the most part, the commands themselves are the same or very similar to SQL or MySQL. And I'm pretty sure, SQL is created by Microsoft, and there's MySQL and SQLite, and a lot of people pronounce them SQLite or MySQL, but according to the creators of the programs, I'm pretty sure that they're not SQL, but SQL. The only one that's SQL, as far as I know, is the Microsoft version. Anyway, just want to get out of the way. If I accidentally say SQLite, I apologize. I'm just pointing that out because someone's going to complain if I don't. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I'm in an empty directory right now, and I have SQLite installed. If you are on a Debian-based system, you can use apt, aptitude, apt-get, or whatever package manager you use on whatever distro you're on. I'm going to use aptitude to search real quick. I'm going to search for SQLite. And you'll see you get a bunch of packages because there's different packages for different languages. We're going to work with the SQLite program itself from the command line. And as you can see, I have two here listed. I have SQLite, which if you look at the description says that it's version 2, but I'm going to be working with SQLite 3 here specifically, and there are some differences. So make sure if you're going to be working with a database that already exists, figure out which one it is. As you can see, I already have this installed. If you don't have it installed, use your package manager install. For example, you can do sudo apt install SQLite 3. And go ahead and install it. I already have it installed, so let's go ahead and get working with it. Once it's installed, all you have to do is type in the name of the command and then give it the name of the database. If the database doesn't already exist, it will create it. So we'll just create one called example.db. And now we have created it. You can see we're at the SQLite prompt here, and you can do .help for help, but I'm going to show you some basic commands here. So first thing we're going to do is create a table. So if you're unfamiliar, you have a database, and in that database you have tables. And these tables are where you store your information. You can have multiple tables within one database. And you can kind of think of tables like spreadsheets. They aren't really, but they can be displayed like that. But just think of it as like rows and columns is the easiest way to think about it. And here I'm going to type in some commands, and it's usually common for the actual commands to be all capitalized, and then the information you're entering to be lowercase. Doesn't have to be that way, but I'm going to try to do it that way just to keep it, what's the word I'm looking for? Just to do it the same way all the time and make it easier to read. So I'm going to type in create. I'm going to type it all capital, but again, it doesn't have to be all capital. I'm going to create a table. What am I going to call this table? I will call this table table 1. And then in here I'm going to say parentheses, and then you want to end every command with a semicolon. If you don't, you'll go down to the next line and you realize what did I do wrong. You just put a semicolon and hit enter. We'll give an example of that later. But I'm going to create this table with, I'm going to create 2 columns, but really it's going to create 3. So I'm going to say the first column is going to be called fname, and I'm just going to make it a text. You can do different types of input. I'm not going to get into that much detail on this. Text is obviously there's different types like characters and dates and numbers, types of formats for these entry points. But I'm just going to do text just to keep things simple. But if you're really going to get into database stuff, you really want to learn more about the different formats. Anyway, I'm going to say fname text, comma, lname. And this is the name of my columns. So I'm going to have a column for names, the first name and the last name. I can call this first name, last name. I just chose to call them lname and fname, just keep things short. And again, text is the type of text it is. You can also put in here not null, meaning that you have to have an entry in there. You'll return an error if you leave that blank. And that's up to you, depending on what's entering if we're creating a database of names, a table of names of people, you might have their first name, their last name, their middle name, their phone number, their address, but maybe someone doesn't have a middle name. So you don't want to leave that null, but maybe you always want a first and last name. You can say not null. So I'll go ahead and put that in there for both of these. And again, capitalizing this because they're actual commands of SQLite. I'll go ahead and enter, and we have created that table. No output means everything was successful. Now, let's go ahead and insert something into that table. So I'm going to say insert into, and again, the name of our table is table 1. And then here I'm going to insert these values. Oops, let's go ahead and put a space here and spell things properly. And here I should be able to put in a name. I'll put in a first name like John. And then separate by a comma. And I'm using quotations here. You can use single or double quotes. And I'm going to just name him John Smith. And if everything goes right, we have now inserted that name into the table. Let's go ahead and quickly insert another name. I'm going to hit up arrow to bring up that last command. And I'll just put in someone named Sam Smith. And then I'm going to put in someone named Rick Smith's son. And then we'll also put in a name. We'll say Rick Johnson. And let's just put one more name in there. We'll say, I'm just trying to think of a name, Tim. And we'll say, give this guy a name of Peterson. There we go. So now we have a number of names in there. How do we view what's in the database? Well, we can say now select, and what do we want to select? Right now I'm just going to do an asterisk, meaning select all the information from the database, or from the table. We're going to say from table 1. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And as you can see, I forgot to put a semicolon, which I forget to do quite often. And what I'll just do here is hit semicolon. That means that's the end of that command. And then I'll hit enter. And there you go. It displayed all the names in the database and all the information from the database. We can also now do a query and grab certain rows if they equal something. So I can say, here I'll say select all from table 1, and then I can say where, and I can say fname, and I can say is Rick. Okay? Don't forget the semicolon there. So we're selecting, we want to display all the information from the table 1 where the first name equals Rick. No such column Rick. Okay. I think I have to put this in quotations. There we go. So now we have Rick Smith's son and Rick Johnson. Okay. Now let's go in a little bit further into this, and let's say we want to do partial matches. What I can do is, and also we can do case sensitive. So if I do a lowercase r here, you'll see it won't return anything. But if I do instead of is, I can say like. So it's like Rick. Now it's going case insensitive. So let's go here and say instead of f name, let's do l name for last name. And I'm going to say Smith. So now I'm going to find all the information from table 1 where the last name is like Smith. I do that and we get Smith and Smith, but we don't get Smith's son. So what we can do here is I can come in here and say a % on there, and now it's going to autocomplete the rest of that. And I'm going to try something right here real quick. I'm not sure if this is going to work. Okay, that doesn't work. So it's got to be the %. So there we go. We got everyone whose last name is Smith or Smith's son. We can also go the other way, and we can say any name that is like and maybe ends in son. So we got Rick Smith's son, Rick Johnson, and Tim Peter's son. And of course you can put the % on both sides of those. I don't have any names that really are like that where I can put, let's just say select everything from table 1 again. And yeah, not really. So, but you can put, if I want to, % like this, and it will match everything that has son in the middle there. Again, case insensitive, and that's because we're saying like. Okay, so we've searched for exact matches, and we've searched for partial matches, case insensitive. But let's say you have two people with the same name, and you want to pick a particular one. Well, by default, if you don't set a primary key column, which we can talk about in a moment, it automatically creates one, and it's not showing it by default. But what I can do here is I can tell it specific columns. So let's go here, let's go back here and say, okay, we want to select everything from table 1, and we can see that we're now looking at everything. But if I want, I can say instead of everything, I can say F name, and now it's just displaying first names. Or I can say L name, and it's only displaying the last name. What I can also do is put in here row ID. And now each column has its own number that SQLite has automatically added and increments each time you add an entry. And this comes in handy when you're trying to make sure you're working with the exact right entry. Again, you don't want to delete, if you're going to delete or update a column, which we're going to talk about in a moment, you want to make sure you're doing the exact one where this column here, this row ID, is what you're going to really want to work with at that point. So real quick, let's look at deleting a row from there. So let's say I wanted to remove here. Let's go ahead and just list everything out again. So we have John Smith's, Sam Smith, Rick Smithson, Rick Johnson, and Tim Peterson. And let's say I wanted to delete Sam Smithson, or I'm sorry, Sam Smith. Now, I can say delete any match where it's Sam and Smith, but what if there's two Sam Smiths? Well, what I can do here again is I can say, let's grab everything from this table. Let's clear the screen. Where the last name is like Smith. And instead of showing everything, let's go ahead and just say row ID. And actually, we want to do something like row ID, and I think it's just a comma here. And we can say L name, and I can say comma F name. And again, it's displaying it here in the order I put it. So even though in the database it goes row ID, last name, or first name, last name, I can display it last name, first name, or whatever parts of that I want. So now I can quickly see, okay, he has an ID of 2. I can now say I want to delete from table 1 where the ID, or sorry, row ID equals, and I can say 2. And I know for sure it's only going to delete because that row ID is set to be, I don't want to say individual, what's the word I'm looking for? Unique. Unique. No two, the database won't let 2 have the same ID. So now that I do that, I can do that. Success because there was no error output. And now we can say, let's go ahead and look at everything in table 1 again, and you can see that that gentleman, Sam Smith, is now removed from the database. And again, if we do it like this, you can see that he's gone. And let's go ahead and just say everything from that table. You can see everything, and you can see that we have 1 and 2 is gone. We can, I guess, theoretically put in another 2, but really if we enter a new one, so let's say we wanted to add something else, we'll just add a new person here. I'll say insert into, again, that doesn't have to be capital, it's just considered proper as far as making it easier to read, table 1, and we will say values, and we will say Peter Thompson. How about that? Semicolon there. And now if we list them all out, you can see, oh, not that, let's do all of them. It's continued on, it doesn't go back and fill in number 2. It just looks at the last one and continues from there. Okay, so we've deleted people, we've added people. Here's another thing. Let's add a new column. So we already have a database with a table. We want to add something into that table, a new column. We want to have a phone number in there so that we now have contact information. So what we're going to do is we're going to alter the table. So we'll say alter table, whoops, and we're going to alter table 1. And again, you can have more than one table. Add, and we're going to add a column I always misspell it. Yeah, there we go. Column, and we're going to add a phone column. And again, there's different types. I'm just going to say text here for the type of column it is, but really there's probably better options for that. We're going to go ahead and do that, and now there's a column. Now if I go through here and I list all this out again, let's just say everything, even though it won't show the row ID. You can see there's another pipe symbol there as far as the output. So they all have a column for phone number, but they don't necessarily have a phone number entered in there. So let's go ahead and update somebody's phone number. So again, let's do this. Let's go here. So now we can see, let's say we want to update Tim Peterson's phone number. I am going to now say update table 1, and we're going to set the phone, which is what we named that column to, 555-555-1234, and we're going to say we're going to do that where the row ID equals, and we said we'll do that for Tim Peterson, we'll say 5. So we're making sure we're only updating that one person. So we can go ahead and do that. I forgot the semicolon, put the semicolon, hit enter, and now if we show these all again, but we say, here we can say phone as well. There we go. You can see that Tim Peterson now has a phone number. Now if I didn't put the ID there, if I just said update this, I think this will work. I haven't tried this yet. Update table, set phone to that. So time you might want to do this. Let's see if it works. Yeah. You can see now everybody has that phone number, and that would have overwritten, if I gave it a different phone number, it would have overwritten Tim Peterson. So if I come in here and I now say 5555 and display that out, everyone has the phone number 5555. That could be useful if you create a new column, let's say, and let's say you're creating a database and everyone's going to have a avatar, a little image of themselves. But you're creating this database and you don't have the avatars for everybody yet, but you have a default avatar. You could theoretically put in a value there, whether it's the information for the avatar, the location of the avatar, or even just some sort of text saying that it hasn't been filled in yet, because obviously when you're writing your code to display the avatar, you can say if empty, display this. But let's say you wanted to put in an avatar for everybody that links to something in particular. You could do that in the database. It wouldn't be the way I would do it. But that's just a random example that you could do. So we've done all that. Yeah, so let me exit out of this. Actually, it's .quit to get out, and don't forget your semicolon there. I thought it was .quit. .quit help .quit exit this program. Oh, I guess without the semicolon. The one time I remembered the semicolon, I did not need it. Okay, and as you can see, there's lots of information in there on commands that's right there in the little help for you. But let's list this out so you can see the database we created, and if I do file on it, it will tell us that SQLite3.x database, last written using this version of, if I said SQL, I meant SQLite database. So yeah, again, a lot of applications use this probably on your phone. You probably have a number of databases like this. If you can access them, again, your contacts possibly, your text messages, you can pull them out and look at all your information, all your conversations and whatnot, back them up and access them on your desktop like this. But you have to make sure that you're using the right version. So writing the file command, again, on the database will tell you what type of database it is, whether it's version 2 or 3. So that's one way. And there could be other databases, formats that it's using out there. So that is our first look at working with these databases, and from there we were working within the application the whole time. But let's say you want to write a shell script that does all this. Well, you know 99% of how to do it already because the commands are almost the same. But we'll look at that in the next video. So I do thank you for watching. Please visit filmsbychris.com. That's Chris with a K. There's a link in the description. Check out there. You can search through all my videos from both my channels. And if you want to support, there's links to that in the description of the video as well as on my website. I thank you for watching, and as always, I hope that you have a great day. Hello, and welcome to this video by filmsbychris.com. That's Chris with a K. There's a link in the description. I am Chris, also with a K. And today we're going to continue. This is the second video in a series. Be sure to check out the description of this video for a full playlist. We're working with SQLite3 databases. Last one we used the application, went in and manually entered stuff. Well, today we're going to be looking at accessing it basically without going into the program, but just running commands at your shell that you can later on use in scripts. So again, be sure to watch out that first video on making sure you have the right version installed and how to get this all set up. So we do have a database already here, example. Let's go ahead and create a new database. We could work with that one and add a second table, but we're going to just start from scratch here, but saving that database, which is one of the advantages. Well, I'll talk in the next video about using the databases and when to choose what type of database. Anyway, so last time we used the SQLite3 command, and we gave it a name like example.db. I'll just call this example2.db. If I was to hit enter now, it would bring me into that program. It will create a blank database and bring me into the program where I can start entering commands. The thing is, you can use those same exact commands, but if you get them here in quotations, right at the shell, it will run those commands and exit out of the program, which makes it great for writing scripts. So I'm going to say create table, and we'll call this table, last time we called it table 1. Here I'll just call it people, because we're going to enter the same type of information last time. So we're going to go in here and I'm going to say we're going to create a field called fname, and a field called lname, and a field called phone. I'll go ahead and hit enter, and we just created a database. Again, if I list out my files, you can see them here. I can say file example2.db, and you can see right here that it's created a database. Okay, so now we have that. It has a table. We created a database, created a table with fields, with columns. Now let's start inserting rows into that table. So again, I'm going to say SQLite3 example2.db, and now I'm going to say insert into our table. I called it people this time. Into people values, and here I can give it John, comma, and I'm going to be ununique and say John Smith. Boom. Oh, let's see. Okay, table has 3 columns, but 2 values were supplied. So it's looking at that and wanting me to enter something for the value of the phone. So for right now, I'll just go do that. We'll talk about more about that in a minute. And I'm just going to say 555-555-5555 because we created it as just a, oh, and I forgot to say that they were text fields. Let's go ahead and just enter that in there for now. And well, let's go ahead and just, I messed up. Let's go ahead and just remove that file. And I'm not sure what type of fields it creates by default. I'll have to look into that. We'll remove that. Let's go back up in commands here. And here we create this, and we really should say what type of field it is, whether it's a character field, a number field, and they have a bunch of different fields. And again, I'm just going to label them all as text for right now. When you get deeper into databases, you're going to want to specify what type it is. And I don't know if it matters if those are capital or not. Okay, that's fine. Now, real quick, let's see what happens if I do that. Okay, yeah, we do need to give it the phone number. Okay, so we've now entered in that value. Let's go ahead and add in someone else. Again, we'll just go Rick Smith and Bob Smith, and they all seem to have the same phone number at this point, but I'm just quickly entering in names. We'll go ahead and change his phone number here to that. And we'll say Smith's son. I'm purposely putting in similar names to show, since we have such few names, how we can search through stuff. And we'll call this guy Richardson. We'll call him Larry. And we'll say Thompson. We'll call him Jack. Okay. Now, just like in the last tutorial, if we wanted to view something, let's go ahead and clear the screen. We'll just say, again, SQLite. Whoops, that's not the right. Sorry, SQLite. If I said it right, maybe I would type it right. SQLite. And then we'll give it the name of our database, too. And then we're going to say in here, select all from, and the name of our table in this case is people. And it should display everybody in there. And again, instead of saying all, if we want to, we can say L name. Now we're looking at all the last names. We can say comma F name. Now we have last names and first names. And if we want to, we can say last name and first name. If we want to, I could probably do this. First name, last name, first name. Yep, we can output it like that if we wanted. Let's go ahead and clear the screen. And of course, if we want to, we can also put in there, instead of there, we can say phone number and get the phone number. And of course, it's hidden unless you request it, but it's there is the row ID, which auto increments, and we have them all through there. Now, if we wanted to delete someone like Bob Smithson, or if we wanted to find, before we do that, let's search for all that information where L name is like, and sorry that's going on to a new line there, but that says like, and then we're going to say like, and we're going to say in single quotes here, since we're using double quotes on the outside there, or we can escape them out, we'll say %son. And that should list everybody whose last name ends in son. If we wanted to, we could also say Smith. And now it's everybody with the last name Smith, or at least begins with Smith. Now let's say we wanted to delete Rick Smith. So we're going to come here. Let's just start typing it. SQLite3, or sorry, SQLite3, example 2.db, and we're going to say delete. And where are we going to delete? We're going to delete where the ID is. I already forgot his ID number. Let's go ahead and look at this again. Okay. Now we're going to say SQLite3, example 2.db, then we're going to say delete, and from here we're going to delete from, not table 1, people is the name of our table, and we're going to delete where the row ID equals, and we're just going to go ahead and get rid of Bob Smithson, number 4 there. So we should be able to do that, and he has been deleted. If we run that last command again, you can see that the only people with last names that end in son are Larry and Jack. If we wanted to get rid of Larry, we can go ahead and say he is number 5. We'll remove him. And again, if we display everybody in the database, or in that table at least, finish the quotations there, you can see that it has removed them and their IDs. But if we were to add someone in, so again, if we were to run this command, let's just say Control-R, insert into values, Kelly, Thompson, sure, give them a new phone number, there we go. And we were to display all that out, you can see that they added Kelly at the bottom there with a new row ID. So basically, as you can see, it's all the same commands that you would do if you're inside the SQLite program, but we're just putting them in quotations there and saying what database, and it's now modifying it all, or getting that information without going into the program. And so this allows us to script it out, and that's what we're going to play with in the next video. So be sure to check that out. I do thank you for watching. This is, again, a video by Chris of filmsbychris.com. That's Chris with a K. There is a link in the description. There you can search through all my videos from both my channels. Give you nice little thumbnails there. There's also a support section there. If you click support, it brings you down there. You can support me if you like my videos through PayPal or Patreon. There's also should be a link to the Patreon page in the description of this video, which is patreon.com/metalx1000. That's metalx1000. That's unfortunately my username that I picked many years ago, and I'm stuck with now. And yeah, you can also look through all my notes. I do have notes on all this. If you go to my webpage, click on where it says scripts, I believe, and then you'll have a section there that has scripts, notes. That's it. Let me just bring you there. Right here. Let's go Films by Chris. And again, the support section will bring you to where you can support me financially if you can. and we have software. The software section has my GitLab account with bigger projects, scripts, which are scripts I have running on my web server that you can play around with, and then notes. Notes will bring you to this, and if you were to type in SQLite, you can see that I have a few tutorials here. Most of the ones that we're looking at are from this SQLite3. I have notes similar to what we're doing here in there. I also looks like I have a database one on doing it on Android phone, probably with text messages, and then the Nokia N900 if you have one of those. I do thank you for watching, and as always, I hope that you have a great day. Hello and welcome to this video from Films by Chris, that's chriswithak.com. There's a link in the description of this video. I am Chris, also with a K. Today we are going to continue what we've been working on. So this video is part of a series. Be sure to check out the first two parts. We've been working with SQLite3 databases, and in the first video I showed you some basic SQLite commands that you can run within the SQLite3 program. Then in the second video I showed you how you can run pretty much all those commands from the prompt on your computer, from your shell. Well, today we're going to take what we've learned and put that into a script. Now we already have two databases created here from example and example 2 from our first two tutorials, and if I list them out here with file, you can see that they're both SQLite3 databases. Let's go ahead and just use one of those. We'll use example 2, which has a table in it called people that we created and has a few entries. So if I real quick select from that all the people, you can see that we have right now 5 people with unique row IDs, first names, last names, and phone numbers. So let's go ahead and create a script that's going to allow people to enter new information, because obviously you could type this out because you're a great programmer and know a lot about databases, or at least a little bit, but you're going to have end users who are going to want to be able to enter people into this database, and they don't know all these commands. You just want them, you want to ask them, what's the first name, what's the last name, what's the phone number, and you want to put it in there. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to use Vim as my text editor, but use whatever text editor you're comfortable with, as long as it's not a Word document editor. We'll just call this enter people, or enter, yeah, people, sure, .sh. And of course I'm going to start off with my shebang line, saying that this is a bash script, and then we'll create some variables. So our database name here, and I'm just going to give it the local name, the relative to where we are, but in real life you'd probably want to give it the full path. And of course our script is not going to create a database. You're going to already have that created. This is just for people to enter in, although you could create a script that creates it. You could also create a script that checks, see does it exist, if not create it, but we're not going that in depth. So our database name is database2.db, and then the table name is going to be people. And of course you want to put these into variables at the top, because you're going to call these things multiple times, and if you ever change the name of the database, you want to point to a different database, or you change the table name, you don't want to change it everywhere in your script. You want to change it in one place, that's the top. Now let's go ahead and be polite and welcome our user. Okay? And then we're going to say, please, again being polite, enter user info. And then I'm going to say read. We're going to use the read command to get this information, and read does have a option to display messages. I'm drawing a blank on what that argument is, so I'm just going to say echo-n. So that means no new line, and we're going to say first name, and I'll put a space there, and then we'll say read f name. Whoops. Okay. I'm going to say echo-n l last name. I'm going to say read l name, and then we're going to say echo-n phone number. I'm going to say read phone, and then we're going to use our SQL commands. We're going to say SQLite3. We're going to say our DB, and then we're going to say in quotations here, we're going to say insert into $table, whoops, table, values, and we're going to give it these values. We're going to say $fname, comma, $lname, comma, $phone. And I'm pretty sure I typed all that proper. And that should be it. It should enter the information into there if we've typed everything correct. So let's go ahead and save this. Of course, we have to make it executable. We only have to do this once on the system. And then since the script is in this directory, we're going to say // saying it's in this directory, this script. And it says, welcome, please enter user information. First name, we'll call this guy Billy. We'll say his last name is Peterson, and we'll say his phone number is 555-555- some numbers. And here we see no column named Billy. So what did we do wrong? Let's go ahead and look at our script, and I think I know it's a quotation thing. Yeah, there should be, since these are strings, we should have them wrapped in these single quotes like that. And we made all these text, all these fields in the database text, which is not necessarily the best option, but we're just going over the basics here. So let's try that again. Let's go Billy, what do we call him? Peterson. We said 555-555- some numbers. Okay, enter, and success. So let's go ahead and select all the people from there, and you can see Billy Peterson is now in our database. Now, you may want to be entering a bunch of names here, so let's go ahead and go back into our script, and here we can go into a loop. So we can just say while one do, and then I'm going to take all these rows and indent them, and then I'm going to say done. Now, if we run our script, it's going to ask us for a name. I'll say Peter Bobson. Sure. Phone number, blah, 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 whatever. And we're not doing any checking here yet as far as making sure this information is in the correct, proper format. And since they're text fields, anything should pretty much succeed. And here, so it entered that, and then it went on to the next name. We'll say John Johnson, phone number, sure. And it's going on. And then I can hit Control-C to get out of that. Let's go ahead and go back into our script and make it a little more full. So we're getting more into shell scripting in this tutorial than we are SQLite3, but that's part of it. I mean, once you know the basic commands for database stuff, and you know the do's and don'ts, it's writing it in whatever language you choose to write it in. In this case, we're doing shell scripts. Obviously, you can write it in PHP or Python or Perl or C. So let's go ahead, and what we're going to do here is real quick, I'm going to put in a these two pipe symbols, and I'm actually put into, we're going to say echo $fname entered, and then I'm going to say over here echo error. Okay, and I'm not going to do anything about that. But right now, we should, if we run that script again, and we'll type in a name. I'm not even going to think of names right now. I'm just going to enter stuff. It says that person was now entered, and it moves on to the next name. Let's go ahead and go in our script and make it a little bit further along. We're going to say echo, would you like to enter another user? Read. And let's go ahead and do it like this. We'll say capital Y N, and we will say, let's go ahead and do, I like just a formatting thing, no new line there. And let's put a semicolon, and we'll read ANS for answer. And then we're going to say if $ANS equals, or sorry, we should do equals y, or let's do n first. I'm not going to go into depth on this because we could write a lot here. So if the user enters a lowercase n, we are going to then just echo goodbye and then exit. And then we're going to say else. We'll clear the screen, and that's pretty much it. We'll start the loop over again. So this could be, obviously, for a real program, you want to put in more information there. Basically, I'm saying if you click n, a lowercase n, it's going to exit out of the program. And if you do anything else, it's going to default to yes, which the capital Y here means Y is the default. So if you left it blank or put Y, it's supposed to continue. You really should put in something else. If they hit something else, say, sorry, invalid answer. But let's go ahead and just go with that. And we'll run this script. And I'm going to clear this. Oh, I can't clear the screen once I start the script. Okay, we're going to say John, Peterson. Again, I think there's already one of those in there. We'll give him a phone number. And it says John's entered. And it says, would you like to enter? If I hit anything other than N, it's going to start over again. Now I can type in Peter Parker. He has a phone number. Enter. And now if I hit N, it should say goodbye and exit out of the program. Okay. So the only thing you really want to get into here is checking if these values are proper. If you can do something simple as if any of these are blank, so we can do one check or multiple check. I'll just do a quick here. I'll say if $fname is blank. Let's do this on one line. Then echo value needed, and then we will exit with a 1. Actually, I said 1 down here, and this should be a 0 because that's a proper exit. This is an improper exit. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly just paste that there. There's better ways to check this, but this is a quick, simple way to do this. You can check, you want to check not only if they filled it in, but if it's the right format. And here we'll say phone. So in theory, if I typed all that right, let's go ahead and type one improper. Again, we'll say Frank Castle and give him a number. Frank was entered, and I'll hit enter to continue. Now I'll just hit enter, and it says value needed, and it exited out. If I run it again, and I give it a first name, Peter, and I leave the last name blank, it's going to say value needed and exit. I can say Peter Parker, and if I leave the phone number blank, it's going to say value needed. But if I say Peter Parker and give it a number, Peter was entered, I'm going to say no to continue. Anyway, these are just some things very, very basic. Like obviously, when you're writing an actual program for people to use, there's the hardest part of programming is thinking of what the end user is going to do that you're not thinking of, and there's always something. But I thought I'd give you some examples here. I will throw this up on Pastebin and hopefully put a link in the description of this video to it. And I hope that you found this useful. I do thank you for watching. I'm going to do at least one more video on SQLite, mainly playing around with the files, some things you may or may not know, things you might need to think about. Again, this video was actually more on scripting, but scripting to use that SQLite database. I do thank you for watching. Please visit filmsbychris.com. That's Chris the K. There's a link in the description, and I hope that you have a great day.